Hello everybody, I'm Chris Callahan, also known as Mr. C, and today we're going to talk about smothered checkmates. A smothered checkmate is a checkmate that just doesn't seem possible. It's a checkmate done by the knight completely by itself. Just one knight and nothing else. It doesn't seem like that should be enough firepower, but it is. So how do we checkmate with just a knight? Well, it does need a little bit of help, but not from its own pieces. Take a look at this black king here, right? Usually when you're checkmating the king, you attack the king and all the squares he can go to, and you're doing all that with your own pieces. But this black king has nowhere to go to because of his own pieces. It's his own pieces that are blocking the way, and this is what gives us the conditions necessary for a smothered checkmate. So the correct move for white here is knight to d6 checkmate. Amazing that a knight can checkmate by itself. The knight gives check, and it's the only piece necessary because all the squares that the black king could go to are occupied by his own pieces. The position you're looking at here is one of the more well-known forms of a smothered checkmate, and it involves a queen sacrifice, a very pretty queen sacrifice. The correct move in this position, believe it or not, is queen to g8. Now the king can't take the queen because there's a knight here protecting her, but the rook can take it. So this might cause you to not even consider that move because you're giving your queen away, but the follow-up makes it clear that it's the best move. Knight to f7 checkmate. Again, the knight all by itself is giving checkmate because the black pieces are helpfully covering all of the escape squares. Here's another very famous example from what's called the Budapest defense. White has just played pawn to a3, attacking the bishop, and you might think the bishop would run away, or the bishop could trade itself for the knight, or there's a lot of different moves like that. But very surprisingly, black here does not move the bishop. He leaves the bishop right where he was. And I've seen this happen in games, in various games with various people many times. The move here for black is knight takes e5. And more than once I've seen the player playing white in this position just stare at the board for several minutes, just confused. Why did you let me take your bishop? That's a free bishop. And then they sort of shrug their shoulders and they take the bishop. And they are met with the very surprising move, knight to d3 checkmate. It's still, I've seen this a million times, and it's amazing to look at. The king has nowhere to go because, again, they're covered by all his own pieces. And the one thing that you really need to notice, the difference here in other positions, is that the pawn cannot take the knight because it is pinned by the queen. That is quite a checkmate. Here's another example from a game that I played. I mean, it's a fairly well-known position. Probably I'm not the only person to play it. But I was playing black in this position. And in the game that I played, to my eternal regret, I played the move knight takes c2. Now, knight takes c2 looks a bit like a smothered checkmate, but the problem is the queen can take the knight. Now, of course, that means I win the queen, which is usually pretty good news if you're winning somebody's queen in a chess game. So why would I regret winning the queen? Why would that be something that still haunts me to this day? And it does. Well, I had a much better opportunity, and I guess let's make an exercise out of this. Black to play, and play a move that is better than winning the queen. I'll give you a second to think. Well, the answer is knight to f3 checkmate. Classic smothered checkmate. All the possible escape squares are covered, and the bishop cannot take the knight because that would leave the queen aiming at the king, which of course is not something you're allowed to do in chess. Let's do another exercise here. White to move. What would you do? I'll give you a second to think. Pause the video if you like. Well, this is very similar to the other smothered checkmate tactic that we look at. The answer is queen to e8 check. The king cannot take because there is a knight here. Whichever black piece takes back, the final move is knight to f7 checkmate. A smothered checkmate. Here's another exercise along similar lines. I will give you a moment to think. Pause your videos if you like. Well, I hope the first thing you noticed here is that there is potentially a smothered checkmate available, knight f7. The problem is this queen right here keeps it defended, so we need to find a way to chase the queen away, and we'll get a nice, pretty smothered checkmate. The correct answer is queen takes h7. The king cannot take because of the knight, which means the only legal move is to take with the queen, which moves the queen away from where it was defending, knight to f7 checkmate. Well, that's about all I got on smothered checkmates. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.